Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. Today, a very interesting period of time, both for me personally and also with the Noble Ape development, 2006 through to 2009. 2006 is an important date. You may recall it's been 20 years of Noble Ape in 2016. It's also been 10 years of podcasting in 2016. In 2006, technically I knew about the podcast format in 2005. I just didn't have enough of the equipment, and as I noted, things financially had been very stretched by this period of time, so it wasn't until 2006 that I was able to quite comfortably buy my first mic and start doing audio production and producing podcasts. At the time, I started with the Noble Ape podcast Ape Reality and also the Biota podcasts, and it lends itself very heavily to actually creating a community for the first time. Now, truth be told, while I was in the UK, a fellow called Dave Kerr had contacted me, and he and I had exchanged emails associated with the fact that we were artificial life developers, and, we'd read the same books at the same periods of time, and they'd inspired us. Dave Kerr was based in Canada, and at this period of time I was based in Las Vegas, Nevada. So Dave Kerr was one of the first people that I interviewed on the Biota podcast, and the distinction here is Ape Reality is kind of musing podcast associated with various developments with Noble Ape. It also talks about some of the ideas, some of the broader philosophy, some of my concerns associated with developing Noble Ape. The Biota podcast was an extension of Bruce Damer's biota.org site, and it was an opportunity to at least discuss with a variety of folk their artificial life development, their artificial life philosophy, and basically grow a community accordingly. It was very strange to talk to a number of people that had had something to do with this thing. I was able to talk with a number of luminaries, a number of folks who had inspired my own development, and also a few people that have been relatively curious through the early Noble Ape development. But now I had a mic, now I was hosting a show, everything was forgiven, everything was organised accordingly. One of the more frustrating components of this period of time was the fact that I had to rewrite Noble Ape in Cocoa, and having spent 18 months rewriting Noble Ape in Carbon in order to get the stuff, shown at WWDC and these kind of things, I was relatively well aware that doing a full-time job, really more than a full-time job, plus doing this additional software development after hours was just brutal. There were a couple of times where I was literally walking through the desert. I walked extensively while I was in Las Vegas because our house or our apartment, as it changed, was always within relative walking distance of my office. So typically, because my wife was also working at the time, I would walk to and from work. And this gave me an opportunity to do a lot of thinking as I transitioned, and also listen to early podcasts as they were at the time. And I remember walking through the desert one day and just thinking, I have so much work to do with this Noble Ape simulation independent of the Apple work. And I really feel I don't want to be working for Apple exclusively. Although the movement to Carbon had been a good thing in terms of the displays at WWDC, it was 18 months of me effectively working on carbonizing the Noble Ape simulation exclusively. A few other little bits and pieces, obviously Mriddle's influence and work, and Pedro's influence and work were there too, but the idea of rewriting Noble Ape again for another Apple interface really wore on me. Although, I did end up doing it. And I did end up doing it very much on my terms, with a series of features that slowly rolled themselves in. In fact, truth be told, a number of the features really weren't completed in the Cocoa implementation of Noble Ape until about 2011. They just weren't really important for what Apple wanted to show with it, and for that reason I optimized very much associated with getting the Cocoaization of the simulation up to what Apple wanted initially, and not much more. This was an interesting period of time because in 2009 I lost my job, or actually the company I was working for closed, and I had a short period of time of kind of clambering around trying to find work. I went back to Australia and visited a number of kind of formative areas associated with the Noble Ape simulation, caught up with family and occasionally friends who had a lot of questions. I'd been out of Australia for 10 years, basically, and returning in 2009 was a very interesting experience and reaffirmed that I probably should visit more frequently than every 10 years. So that was 2006 through to 2009 of the Noble Ape development. Coming close to the end here, only a couple more podcasts to go, folks. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.